Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about surface modeling, and I have a little bit of history with surface modeling I want to share just briefly, and that is um, that I kind of avoided surface modeling for a while because I'm kind of an old guy. I've been around since CAD was brand new, any kind of CAD, and we went through what we call 2D CAD, and then 2.5D and 3D and surface modeling, and eventually solid modeling. And it was a major breakthrough to have solid models that really had volume and could have weight to them, and you could check different properties and all those kinds of things. So part of me kind of just made a decision, hey, let's not go backwards to surface modeling. We're in the solid modeling world. That was a little naive on my part, I think, because I didn't exactly see what the purposes for surfacing. As I mentioned in a video a while back, lofting and surfacing are very good tools in the industrial design side of things and the product design, and where you're doing kind of curvy shapes. And I find that I use surfacing a lot now, not as the original way I'm modeling the part, but as a way of going in and troubleshooting or problem solving a certain area. Maybe there's some joint coming together that I can't get to work out just right, and I can go in and do some surfacing tricks on it and eventually, solve the problem. So for today, I'm just going to introduce the basics of it. I'm going to start with a simple method of building a surface at a time, and you'll see it's pretty tedious. And then I'm going to go to a little quicker method that makes it go quicker. But really, the whole thing is going to feel a little bit slow compared to solid modeling because we can do things so fast with a solid. But you'll see some of the advantages as we go through this. So first thing I'm going to do is turn on the surface modeling tools, go up here into this gray area, right click, and go down to surfaces, and I'm going to drop that in over here. And then, typical of these tools, only a few of them are highlighted or colorized. That's the ones that are active and available right now. We actually just want this one right here, Extruded Surface. So keep in mind, what is this surface modeling? It really is surfaces. It's working with no thickness to the geometry. It's just a surface that literally has zero thickness. And then eventually we can turn that into a solid model if we need to or want to. So I'm going to start a sketch on this front plane. I'm just going to draw a straight line because it's going to represent a surface. I'm not going to dimension this or anything, just to give you the idea of the process. Now remember, I clicked on this, which is Extruded Surface, so I've drawn a line in there. Now if I close the sketch, it sees it as a surface. I can go ahead and stretch this out. I'm not going to worry about what size, like I say. I'll just go ahead with what I'm kind of doodling here. And notice, you can't really tell exactly, but it has no thickness. It is just sort of a surface model, a flat sheet, if you will. And so at this point, not real useful. Let's go ahead and I'm going to draw another one. Just start a sketch on here. I'm going to go different methods so you can kind of see this as we go. With this one, I'm sketching first. I'm sketching first and then going to hit the command. Last time I hit the command first and then I sketched. It all works. So I'm done sketching. I just drew a vertical line there. Pick the command, in this case, Extruded Surface. And the direction is important. It's up to me which direction is important, but I'm going to go the other way and say OK. And then let's go do another one. I'll just do it off of this one just so you can see that we can. Back to this method of grabbing the command first, Extruded Surface. Which surface do I want to draw on? Go to the sketch line. Do make them horizontal or vertical depending on what you're working with. Once I close that, it sees it as a surface. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and stay with that. And so, right now, unless you've really thought a little bit about surfacing, you kind of don't see much value in this. You could model this as a solid really easily with some volume to it, with some thickness. But this gives you just the basics of the construction technique. So I built 3 surfaces. Now I'm going to trim off these excess pieces just so we get a nice kind of a box side to this. So I'm going to go down here to Trim Surface. it defaults to the last thing that you made, but just so you can clear this up, the thing I'm going to use as a knife, as a trim tool, is going to be in this box. So I'm going to use this one to trim off the piece above there. And it's smart enough, once you've chosen a trim surface, to toggle and be down here under the pieces to remove. So if I just go over there and grab that, it highlights. Whichever side I grab, highlights and will be gone. And so I'll do the same thing again. We'll go trim using this surface here, the vertical one, and then I want to get rid of this extra piece out here. Oops. And say OK. And you get the idea. I'm building a box. And I could go further. I could connect this up. But what I'm going to do is switch now to a little faster method where instead of building it one surface at a time, I'm going to build several surfaces to save some time. So let me just close this guy out. We'll bring in a new one. Make sure you're in a part. And I'm going to go to that same command. I'll go ahead and go to the front plane. And then this time I'm just going to use the rectangle tool and then close the command, that is close the sketch. And see, you can see it's like I'm building 4 surfaces at once. I built kind of a hollowed out box there. And then I can close the ends really easily. To close the ends, I can just go right to this guy right here, filled surface. Grab these edges that make up the boundary around the end I want to close, the opening. And you'll see kind of a yellow preview. Wow, it's taken a long time. Okay, there it is. Kind of see a yellow preview of a surface, kind of closing that off. That's good. Say OK. And then now it looks like a closed box on this side. We'll go do the other side. Now it really is truly hollow, as you can see. It has 0 thickness to these. There's just literally nothing, not thousandths of an inch or anything like that. Let's go ahead and close off the other end. Same idea, just grab the boundary edges. There we go. I was hoping it wouldn't take that long that time. You can see the yellow sort of preview, and now that guy's closed off. But you have to just keep in mind that, you know, if somebody walked in right now and watched me working on this, they would just assume that I drew a square, a rectangle, and extruded a solid. And you totally could do that. This is surface modeling, so we're doing it a piece at a time. And sometimes you want that control. You want to get down to the surfaces. So next thing I'll do to this is turn it into a solid. Right now, if I section it, let's just drag this guy through there, you can see it really is hollow. It has no thickness to those walls. So what do? Well, we want to join all of these surfaces together so they're not individual. And what they call that in here is knit. If you look down here, it looks like a vest to me. Knit surface. Then I just select all of them with a window. And then one of my all-time favorite, actually it probably is my all-time favorite sort of setting or command within SolidWorks is this guy right here. Try to form solid. You don't see that in any other software. Try to indent this paragraph. Try to remove this line or delete or trim or whatever. It's an odd thing, and it gives you a hint that at least at some time that was difficult and it wasn't always happening right. So they had to actually write it as try to form solid. So I check that box. By the way, that command is gone in the most recent version of SolidWorks. I kind of miss it because I think it's just kind of funny, ironic, whatever. So try to form solid says take all of these surfaces and knit them together, but don't just do that. Fill it in, make it a solid. So I'm going to say OK. Now when we go to look at that section view, you can see it is solid inside. Okay. Now, switching gears. That's all fine and good, and we just made a brick, not that exciting. I'm going to model a part that most of my students are familiar with, and some of you will be too, because you'll see it in drafting books since the beginning of time. And so let's see, let's go start a new one. And once I start modeling it, you'll recognize it right away. I'm going to go in, same tool, pick a plane. This time, I'm going to draw with lines. I'm going to tie in that origin right away. And it's basically, in this case, it's kind of an L-shaped bracket. So I'm just going to doodle that in. And I will tie some of this down with dimensions just so we'll stay somewhat proportional. So let me throw a couple dimensions on there. This guy, let's make that 4. And this guy, 3.5. And this thickness, 1 inch. And this one, 3/4. Okay, so now I go ahead and close that sketch, and because we're in that command, it's ready to extrude, if you will, those lines into surfaces. And let's make that 7 inches. And say OK. Now remember, it's hollow. It's really a bunch of surfaces. Okay, so now we want to cap those ends off. You already know how to do that. We'll go over here, grab that surface fill, grab those edges. And I'm not remembering where it is right this second, but there is a way of having it just sort of follow this chain around. Right now I'll just grab, if I can get it to work, I'll grab each of these edges that defines the boundary of that end. There's our ghost surface, our preview. He's ready to go. Do that same thing again. I told you it was a little tedious, and it is. But there are times when you really want it to be surfaces so you can get in there and clean up something, delete something, modify something, clear down to that level. And you can really develop, as far as curvy stuff, you can develop a lot of really nice blended kind of surfaces and curvy things with surfaces, in some ways easier than you do as solid modeling. Okay, so there's an L-shaped bracket everybody's kind of familiar with. I'm going to cut off these corners, just chamfer these off. Same technique and idea, and we'll get a chance to see that trim command come into use again. So I'll start a sketch on there. Just drawing a line. I'm not going to dimension these. I'm just going to eyeball it in there. Close the sketch. Go to this command. Uh-oh, I lost my sketch. Can I see it? There it is. Okay, I want it to go the other way. And I definitely don't need it to be that long, although I will have it sticking out past, just so you can see the trim tool in action here. Okay, so that now just became the knife, if you will, this surface here, that I can cut this corner off with. Okay, so I'm going to go into Trim, select this surface as the Trim tool, and then select this guy and this guy, which wrapped around, and say, okay, those got trimmed off. And then I'll stay in that tool, that is, I'll go to Trim again, and use this back wall as the Trim tool, and then trim off this piece. Okay? And there's another one over here. I'll leave that off for now. The next thing is I've got this kind of dovetail slot, I guess, on the bottom, through this bottom surface here. So I'll go ahead and start a sketch. Again, I won't dimension this, just in the interest of time, but you'll get kind of the idea. And I don't have to close this. This is surfaces, and it's pretty smart, so I don't have to like draw another line across here or anything like that. Just go ahead and accept that, and then use that as a surface. This last sketch, go the other way, just flip it backwards, and then not blind, have it go on up to the next surface, or in this case to the back, and say OK. Now it's hiding inside there, And as you saw, a couple times, I'm not really seeing the thing. It's kind of hiding inside, and I can go back and grab it out of the tree, and I can grab previous and all kinds of things. What I'm going to do, since it knows the last thing I made, I'm going to let it use that to select the trim tool. So if I go to trim again, it knows that this trim tool called Surface Extrude 3 is the last piece that I made. So it's going to use that to trim with, and then click down here and select the area you want to get rid of to trim out, and say OK. And it just trims it right out. I'll do one more feature, and this I think you'll just kind of have the idea. Then I'll combine these together into a solid, and we'll call it good for now. So the next would be, what if I want a hole down through the middle of this guy? So notice I'm going back and forth just because it's sort of how my brain's thinking at the time. I'm going to grab the extruded surface, pick this surface to sketch on, go grab a circle, and I'm not going to dimension it, but it's out there in the middle somewhere. I want it to go down because I'm looking for a surface to trim with, and say OK. And now I can use that cylinder that we just made. It's just a surface cylinder. It isn't a solid cylinder. I can use that to trim with. So now I'm going to go to the trim command. It knows that last surface was the cylinder. So now I can click down here, get rid of this piece to open up that side of the hole, get rid of this piece over here, get rid of that, and now we have a nice open hole. Now I just need to trim off the rest of this surface we've been using. So I go to trim. For the trim tool, I'm going to use this surface, and then just pick what I want to get rid of, highlights, and it's gone. So that's our basic shape, other than, I could chamfer this other corner off. So right now, just keep in mind that when you're working in this environment, if you look over here, everything's surfaces. Surface trims and cuts and extrudes and fills. Now I want to turn it into a solid. So just to remind you that it really is hollow, I'll just glance at this real quick. I just went up to section, and you can see it really truly is hollow. Okay. Okay, so now to turn that into a solid, you've already seen, basically go to knit, select the whole thing, and you can select it surface by surface. If there's only 2 or 3, that's not bad. Got all of those. So I have that wonderful command that I was talking about, try to form solid. I'll go ahead and select that. Now if I just hit merge entities, it'll just still be a surface model. It won't be solid, it'll be hollow, and you might want it that way so you could continue to do some more surface modeling to it and then later on turn it into a solid. But for right now I'm just going to go with it, try to form solid, and it will just fine. By the way, if you hit that and then it didn't work, it just means that you have some extra surface somewhere, something that's kind of cutting across inside and you can't see it, or you left a gap somewhere, it's not really tightly sealed at each joint, then yeah, it's going to say I can't turn that into a solid. Okay, so just to prove the point, here it is as a solid.